Well, hello all. Um, Let me know out there if you are getting audio from YouTube. Apparently, they're not giving me the little um, the little thing that goes up and down. uh, You're all right, Rickard. We're always creators. We're always starting things, sci-fi systems and medieval gaming and that kind of thing. But let me get into my preamble here. Welcome all, creatives, community, kind folks out there, and of course, classmates and collegiates. Yay! Thank you, Dead Man. You have audio. um, Oh, Mr. Spenzar, how are you there? I hope you didn't hurt yourself going through the backlog that I had. So I appreciate you joining me live here on this Monday morning. All right, so this week we're talking triangles. Yeah, what the hell does that mean? Triangles. Yeah, 3 points of contact. Normally, I'm not one to do the here's a best practice kind of thing. So, but you guys have been around for so long that you pretty much can follow exactly where we're going with this. Now, to give a little of a background of why the heck I even chose the word triangles and then where we're going with it as we go through today, Monday, Monster Monday, and then Discord Tuesday, World Building Wednesday, etc. Jenny, thank you for the salute. Thank you. Triangles. What does that mean? Well, there is amongst the martial arts community and many things throughout. Well, thank you, Mr. Spenzar, and says I'm smashing through your Thursday playlist. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, lots of third pillar exploration crap going on in there. I think there's like 60 something videos in it at like slightly over an hour a piece. So yeah. Ooh. Yeah, 3 a.m. You guys are Golden Coast people. Ooh. So a type of thought that goes through the martial arts community and many other communities as well is this idea of a perfect circle. And it has to deal with one of the methods of circling things, not just your opponent or striking or attacking or exercising or whatever the case might be, but it's also about the theory of learning and having a best practice throughout life. And so we begin our lives in our childlike state, thinking of things very simply, very surface level, very very black and white. And so yeah, Scott Poe's out there in Arizona, and it's 3 a.m. there. Yes, sure is. I don't know why you guys are so insane, but I appreciate it. So when it comes to practicing martial arts, we start to try to learn more. How do you do this thing? What kind of technique is this? And you start learning everything there is to learn within your particular art, learning other arts, studying it, getting online, practicing with friends. And so a little bit of that singing. Are we talking dancing, singing, and acting today? Somewhat, Rickard. I'm getting to a point. So you learn all these things, and so the brain expands, and you start to make this big circle, and your bowl begins getting filled with so much information. And so in order to encapsulate that entire bowl, you have to start to increase the size of that bowl, and you can't have everything in it. You can't perform every single action there is. So you have to start getting rid of things where it starts to come out of the bowl. You start to enclose that bowl. And eventually, when you make a full circumference circle, you realize that you start to simplify things down to its core essential value. And many times that core essential value ends up reversing right back to where you started from in the beginning, when you were childlike in your mind and didn't understand that what you now understand was as simple as it was when you first started. Yeah. Yes, Dead Man, poetry and writing, included with the singing and dancing and acting and putting all that together. So one of my best practices is the use of triangles. And so today with Monster Monday, we're going to talk about triangles in terms of using like NPCs, monsters, living beings, and why that matters. Okay, so here you have, let's go to the extremely simplistic form. You have an NPC. You have your PCs in front of that NPC. PC says, hey, I want to convince, what's simple? You're in a wagon or you're walking into the city and there's a city guard standing in front of the place and he looks you up and down and is like, you're one of those adventuring types. He's got his nose turned up and whatnot. Okay. So PC wants to convince NPC, just let me in the city. Don't bother me. Just let me into the city. And that's like a one-on-one confrontation, right? But if you add in a triangle, if you added a third element, just one element, and you don't have to limit yourself to only 3, but at its simplest point, in a social encounter, just having one extra point of contact can change the dynamic of that encounter. Now, that third point of contact doesn't need to be a physical one. It doesn't need to be present or whatever. So there is a game out there, a role-playing game. I believe it is called Leverage, although I believe other games use the term leverage with this. And that is when you try to convince someone of something, sometimes you need to gain leverage on that individual to get them to act in the way that you wish them to act. So an example would be you go up to the city guard and you say, hey, my friends and I just want to have a nice, a cup of tea, stay a couple of nights, and we'll be on our way. Yeah. Oh, become a Renaissance character. Yes. Oh, you know me. I like to talk with my teeth closed tightly shut. Oh, yes. And then there's AEIOU and sometimes no, sorry, talking like Mr. Hal from Gilligan's Island. I apologize for that. I didn't mean to go there. So the idea would be I need to convince the guard to let me in. But what if there's something else that's important to the guard or on the guard's mind? A child that is sick, a wife that he's had an argument with, a gambling debt that needs to be paid, a superior that is looking at him as if he's not doing his job and he's on his last chance before getting dismissed from his job as a guard. Or, I don't know, maybe he ate something that morning that's just not making his stomach feel well. If by just having this third element in there can change the dynamic of that encounter. Now, of course, the PCs may not have any interest or may not even know what that third dynamic is, but you as the dungeon master, the game master, while portraying that character, because every person has a want, has a need, a desire, a fear, a phobia, something they're trying to avoid, and that can change the dynamic of the encounter, having that one extra element in it. And maybe, just maybe, the PCs might be able to piece together by using human perception, insight, having a conversation with this individual without needing a die roll to find out what it is, to find out that leverage that will make that city guard change their mind. Now, it's possible that the PCs, of course, never find out what this third element is. But through conversation, it's possible they may learn it by accident. So, for example, PC says, we want to come into town. The guard looks at him with the, nose turned up like, oh, these people. But the guard has a gambling debt that he's got to pay and owes quite a bit of money. And the PCs are like, well, how much does it cost to come into town? And he's like, oh, for you lot, 1 silver a piece. And one of the PCs is like, that's outrageous. I'm about to go 0 to 60 and slice this guy's head off. And everyone's like, hey, relax, calm it down. Keep it, ooh-ja, take a deep breath. One person opens up the purse and sees a ton of gold and silver in there. And the guard might go, this might be pretty interesting. Maybe I'll let them in and let the people that I owe money to know that there's someone here that's got a lot of cash, or maybe I can talk to the PCs to get that cash out of them. And so it's possible that even if the PCs, your player characters never understand what's going on, that just by inserting one extra element into the situation, especially into a social encounter, to formulate how you're going to act and react, to give you something to latch onto as you're portraying the NPCs in your world, might just give them just a little bit more realism to your vocalisms, to your mannerisms, and how they interact with the PCs. And simply by me giving this NPC, some random NPC, a gambling debt, all of a sudden opens up more stories. Maybe this person is telling about a criminal organization to pickpocket the PCs or something, or he thinks that he can talk to the PCs later on when they finally get their rooms and convince them to come down to the gambling den or something, you know. Mr. Spinzar says, I found it as simple as saying the guard seems distracted, peering over the player's shoulders and briefly looking over his shoulder. Exactly. Just, as creators sometimes think that when world building, that we need to establish everyone's personality and everyone's background all the time, immediately. And that is not the case. But if the guard's distracted, you could steal this information from the PCs. If a PC goes, oh, the guard seems distracted, I wonder what it is. And someone else is like, well, there is a battle brewing on the horizon. I bet he's worried about invaders or something. And you as a game master are like, I hadn't thought about that. Maybe let me write this. Let me write this down. Yeah, that sure is. And and you steal it from the PCs as they start talking amongst themselves. You're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense for that to be the case. And so maybe the guard is only looking for people that look like they're from the Northern Ridge, community or something of that nature. Or maybe they're only looking for certain types of spies, or whatever the case might be, right? And that doing those little things over and over again will start to build, not only build the world, but make the interactions your PCs have with your NPCs a little bit more realistic. And it may be, I know this seems like a little bit of a cheat, but follow me on this, that sometimes, just like in real life, even though you're having social interactions with people, sometimes you just can't convince them otherwise, unless you find the leverage to convince them, right? Guard is looking at you funny, and might even send some other lackeys to watch after you because he doesn't trust you, until such time as maybe someone says, oh, I'm a cleric of a local religion, and the guard goes, oh, okay. I trust you now. Or speaks of their adventures, eliminating the enemies of the North that the guard is so intent on trying to find, or discovering some kind of concoction or cure or salve or tincture or something that can help alleviate the pain because his young niece or something is very ill and sick and wants to do something about it. And that may have zero to do with the PCs until someone finds it out. And it's like, oh, maybe this guard who seems to be bothering us for the next couple of days, maybe there's something else going on. And that may be the one key you need to convince this person otherwise. So Janny says that guard sounds like my players. Yeah. What? Gambling debts? I hope that's not the case. Pillar says, I had a PC get killed by gate guards for 0 to 60ing. I no longer play with that person after that. Yeah, I don't. That's its own thing. I don't understand players that are like that go 0 to 60 in a world in which these are the normal things that happen all the time. That's like saying, hey guys, let's play a modern day game. All right, so the light turns from green to red. Turns red. That's effing stupid. I don't know why the light turns red on my character. It's like it's a city guard. Guards guard cities. Strangers walk into cities. Strangers need to explain why they're there. It's a normal thing. Throw over a copper piece and be done with it, instead of like, I'm not paying anything, I'm gonna kill everyone. I don't get it either, P. Plura says, no amount of smooth talking is going to convince someone to rob a store unless they're inclined to do it already. I absolutely agree. And there's a small faction of the RPG community that thinks of like, hey, I successfully rolled my persuasion check or intimidation check. Shouldn't that give me an automatic success to get them to do what I want? And that's not how life works. It's so, social interactions are so ephemeral, they're so randomized that sometimes you might, charisma is not mind control. Sure, you may get someone to do something temporarily, but they have their own mind. Maybe they're doing something temporarily out of dismay or exhaustion, or who knows what they might do after committing an act or hearing you. Or it's possible you may even convince someone of something an hour after you've already talked to them, even though in the beginning they're just like, I don't care what you have to say to me. And then later on they may think about it and go, maybe they're right. You never know. So finding leverage on someone, finding that little thing that may get them to maybe change their minds or flex just a little bit on a thing. Smooth talking the guard to get into town doesn't mean the guard might not think about it and go, I'm going to send some lackeys to have them followed, or I'm going to tell the secret police about them, or hey, I'm just going to have a casual conversation with my other friends, guardian friends, and say, hey, did you see these new strangers in? They look kind of strange, didn't they? And then someone else may go, when did they come into town? Yesterday, you said? Maybe I'll look into it. You're like, nah, they're harmless. And you're like, nah, maybe I might look into it. So yeah, there's so many different ways. Now, of course, that's one method of using what I'm talking about in terms of establishing a triangle of interaction, right? You have the PCs and NPC, and then this third thing, that's nebulous thing sitting out there in the cosmos. Scott Post says, if you have charisma without wisdom, you will look so cute trying to convince people of silly things they won't do. Yeah. And Infinite Role Players, it's like treat everything like it's a genie granting a wish, which is definitely not the case. And it is true, now, mind you, there are people who are very charismatic without a lot of wisdom, who do try to convince people of things, silly things they won't do, because it may be much like the stereotypical rich debutante ordering people around, and the people around that person just rolling their eyes like, oh, get me another cappuccino, would you? And the person just like rolls their eyes, and their assistant or something's like, sure, I'll be right back, whatever, effing, you know what I mean? Where that person doesn't see that their own actions are causing other people to like not respond to their charismatic inflections, you know what I mean? So that's a thing too, where you may think yourself very charismatic, and that might, first impressions might be cool, but after that, everyone's just like, oh, this person's such a, let me get away from it. Janny says intimidation checks could blow on players' faces. Perhaps the guard feels imminent danger and acts in self-defense. PCs don't see that coming. Yeah, yeah. Especially if that distracted guard is like literally looking for terrorist-like activities, and the PCs are like, watch me just intimidate them, and the guard is just like blows the whistle or rings the bell or something. Someone's like 50 people over, like, here they are, here are the insurrectionists. They're like, what the hell? Mr. Spenzar says, if you have a city with secret police, anytime a player zeros to 60s, have the guards defuse the situation with a token he claims will get the player free drinks or discount, but it's a black mark. Quote, I get free drinks? No, you get black bagged and clubbed in the alley. which could happen, right? PC says, oh, I successfully convinced the guard. GM's like, sure, yeah, you did. Sure you did. where the guard, capitulates, like, sure, you could come on inside. Yeah, alley oops is like, oh, look away. Now we're I went down the social interaction rabbit hole, but this also works for other methods of interactions too, right? Yeah, you convince the guard that you need a whooping. Yeah, open up that can, whoop ass right here. Sorry, guys. I some of you who know me, you can hear that I still have a little bit of that hay fever left in me, so I apologize for that. I've got a little bit of it, little bit of schmelkus in the Gonecticazoink. But anyway, the uh, using the triangle idea, that little third thing there, works for our combats and stuff too, especially with our monsters and our adversaries and all that kind of business, right? So, what do I mean by that? Well, because I am segueing away from our social interaction for more combat. Hey, I want to balance my combat. I need to have something happen in my combat. PCs go through woods. PCs are going down dark alley before they get clubbed in the head and black bagged. Whatever the case interaction might be, having one, when you have, A against B, having like one little extra thing can change the dynamic of what's going on. Now, that one extra thing could, of course, be anything from a simple motivation. Of course, when we come about to Third Pillar Thursday, it might have to do with the environment. But even without that, maybe adding in a third, I've referred to it as a win condition. Some people call it, it could be a distraction. It could be the third element that brings about the, if not the win, it could bring about the stabilization of the combat in general. Here's what I'm saying. Maybe there's a mountain pass, and everyone is trying to get to the other side of the mountain pass because, I don't know, avalanche, season of the year, dangerous horde of enemies coming down from the north, any number of reasons. So one part of adding a triangle is a time standard. So a time standard could be anything. Time standards for me are excellent because they always add tension, and depending on how fast that time standard will clock back down to zero. If any of you are familiar with Blades in the Dark, they actually use the term clocks, and think of a pizza pie sliced into slices of pie, not the little squares, but the little angled pieces of a pie. And as the PCs are trying to achieve a goal, they fill in their clocks, and then the enemies have their own clocks, and there might even be what they call heat that's brought down on the people that play in Blades in the Dark, that the heat might eventually surround the PCs because of the things they're doing. Their enemies or the authorities may surround them, but a clock can be used for anything. And of course, that's a gaming term that they use, but clocks can be, you could take that for any kind of gaming event. For me, I just call it tension or pressure. But this is a great way to eliminate analysis paralysis, right? So for your PCs, you want your PCs to go across the accursed desert. Great. So you say to them, all right, guys, it's going to be a 3-week trip, and you have to go from one end of the desert to the other. And without, they know that the adventure is on the other side of the desert, but maybe they keep getting distracted, and you're just rolling your eyes like, God, just make a straight line across the desert, guys. And they're going, well, isn't there this temple over to the left? And isn't there an oasis off to the right? And maybe we can find this. Maybe we can spend a couple of weeks with this tribe of people we saw passing by. And then, so then you try adding in some enemies or something in there, adversaries. There's worms under the ground and boulets, land sharks, one of my favorites. There are giant scorpions and things, and they fight them off, and then the PCs they're just like, nah, we just want to stay in the accursed desert. And you're thinking that's not where the adventure is. So you need something to push them forward. And that third thing can be a time standard, that if that time standard is not met, then harm will befall them. That could be the winter season is about to sack in the community in the mountain valley will be covered in ice and snow and will not be passable. So the PCs have to make sure that the wagon train gets all the way through. All right. So that might be far off. That might be a month off, a couple of weeks, maybe a few days or what have you. Sailing on a sailing vessel, storm. There's a line of storms on the horizon. They're coming towards you. You need to get to the island as soon as possible before the hurricane hits or tsunami or something of that nature. Adding in those extra element, that extra third thing to move the players, get them moving a little bit faster towards their end goal. Same thing in the desert. Could be a sandstorm. It could be lack of water. It could be you could move the MacGuffin instead of the MacGuffin coming from behind them, you could move it ahead of them. For example, the classic prisoners are captured, and the people that captured them are traveling as fast as they can away from the PCs. Change the MacGuffin of captured PCs to magic items, lost tome. A family friend or loved one has been, captured by the enemy and is traveling as fast away from the PCs as possible. If the PCs stop and rest, that with which they are going after gets further away. Pillar says you get to the dungeon to rescue the prince's cat after messing around for 3 weeks and someone else has already cleared through half of it. Yeah. Yeah, that's the point, right? PCs get to adventure and they're like, all right, well, whatever, we detoured. But anyway, the dungeon should be ready for us. And the dungeon master's like, no, someone's already cleared it out. You're like, PCs are like, what? What do you mean someone cleared it out? No, they went through all the traps and they got a bunch of the gold and there's just a bunch of pissed off half-dead things in there that are like willing to kill you. But no, there's no gold in there. Like, really? Wait, what? They stole our stuff? And that's a perfectly reasonable, for me, a perfectly reasonable and outcome for something like that to happen, right? The captured individuals that the PCs are going after, the prisoners or something, if they find half of them dead on spikes as they move across the accursed desert because they took too long, let something like that happen. Why not? Yeah. There you go, alley oops. It's like, yeah, timestamps. It points finger at procrastinators. Aha. Yeah. Sometime for me, that magic triangle to get people to get motivated is to add something where time is of a factor. Now, of course, whatever thing that's going to befall the PCs shrinks closer to them, the greater their danger, until it becomes literally a mechanical effect where they're literally stuck in a sandstorm. They're literally stuck in a hurricane, or a massive fire sweeping through a city, or an earthquake, or avalanche, or something of that nature. Now, I know I'm flowing a little bit into the third pillar, but you guys get what I mean. Mr. Spenzar says, following a migratory herd across the place that only travel at a certain time of year, avoiding the Wendigo by hiding in the day trails of some reindeer makes the players move at the pace you set. I'm glad we think alike, because one of the books I don't have it. Oh, it's not close by. Plains and Grasslands, I talk about using a herd as cover and following a herd, because maybe the herd, Mr. Spencer was talking about, meaning using a migratory herd, they could be looking for, maybe that herd is going towards a water source the PCs can't find. Maybe they're looking for, they're going from like cold to warm temperatures, like birds or something of that nature. They could be moving to, instinctively moving to higher ground. Pelor says, just look out for landmines if you're following a herd. Yeah. The little, what's the not pumpkin chunkin. Oh, there's a launching cow pies in the air. There's an actual competition to fire those things across fields. So yeah, PCs might have to wipe their boots off following a particular type of herd. But in all reality, though, in seriousness, ancient peoples followed herds, especially here. The indigenous peoples here in the States did that all the time because yeah, Alley says, yeah, light it and chuck it. What is that? Ooh. Like that methane on fire. Yeah, another meaning for shit fire. Hell yeah. And but as silly as that is, that's a real thing though. I mean, um covering oneself in the excrement of the herd might keep them protected from maybe predators, as long as you're following the herd and moving at the speed of the herd, which may leave the PCs behind. Right, Mr. Spencer mentioned that, like, you can move. They move at the pace that the PCs set. So if those reindeer up in the Arctic are moving at a particular rate of speed and then they stop, that them stopping might be a place for them, maybe the PCs to ice fish or unfortunately club a seal or something like that. I mean, who knows what might be happening. And following the herd may lead them away from, say, crossing that dangerous frozen lake that you had set up earlier. Scott Poe says, when you try to hide amongst the herd, you upset the hobgoblin warband already using it for this purpose. Social combat. But I love it, right? Who's to say that your hobgoblin warband isn't doing that? Which brings me to, thank you, Scott, for bringing me to another triangle. Okay, you have your enemy, you have your PCs. We're gonna clash against each other. Great. Okay, that happens enough. But you really want to change it up. So adding in a third element, like a giant herd that happens to be in the way, which is acting as both an obstacle because you can get trampled. It's acting as cover because they're literally meat shields. They're acting as cover, not just from attacks, but for stealthy actions. They're also kind of transforming the landscape, possibly, if they're like bipedal and munching or traveling along. They could be a herd can go into a panic-like state where they start running away from predators and such. And so that third element could affect how the PCs are interacting with the hobgoblin warband that's been using it as cover this whole time to sneak up on the PCs in the first place, which may be how the hobgoblin warband is able to sneak up on the PCs. One of the PCs having a super high perception might be how it is that they're able to sneak up on them in the first place, because they keep getting spotted in the wild, right? So it's possible, that this third element gives some sort of advantage, a tactical advantage to your enemy, even if it's only momentary or temporary for these things to happen. And of course, maybe the herd does force the enemy's NPCs into that, over top of that frozen lake, or maybe the herd does randomly trample someone or something. You've got your randomizer there and you roll and you're like, hey, at the beginning of the round, here we go with mechanics, right? At the beginning of the round, everybody roll a D6, and if you roll a 1, you're going to have to watch out because you're probably going to get trampled, right? And then you're like, okay, you're going to be attacked by 1d4, I don't know, goats or buffalo or horses or whatever the case might be. And that might change the tactics that one or more of the PCs may have in that certain encounter. Instead of going, I attack the hobgoblin attacks me. I attack the hobgoblin attacks me. You get trampled, you get pushed, you get knocked over, that kind of thing. Mr. Spencer says, quote, listen, human, there's not enough room in this buffalo herd for the two of us. Local tribe who feeds off the herds when they pass through. Yeah. And that may be another reason why The social combat, as we're kind of hinted toward, might change, right? PCs see Hobgoblin Horde, they get ready to fight. Hobgoblins are, PCs find out, wait, okay. So you're trying to get the herd, follow the herd into the Warmlands, and they're like, well, we're trying to do the same thing here. We'll help protect the herd. Or maybe the warband sees the PCs protecting the herd from predators, and they kind of change their mind about the PCs, huh? Like, I don't like these humans, but they smell funny, but they are protecting the herd, so maybe we'll let them pass. Or maybe we might even share some of the meat, on our way. Or we have a few extra hide blankets or something or whatever that we might trade with them, just temporarily. We may not like each other, but we can exchange information or something, right? I mean, you never know. And that third thing might be the thing that maybe saves the PCs, especially, you have your first level PCs. You create a situation where you're like, as the game master, you're like, oh, I think I overwhelmed them. 38 Hobgoblin warbands inside of a herd. Oh, they're probably going to get killed. How are they going to get out of this? And that might be the thing that excises them out of the situation, even if combat has started, right? So, yeah, Mr. Spenzar says Ewoks invite you to their sick jungle party because you helped defend their prized resource. Yeah, because I don't know if anybody remembers this, but Ewoks were literally like, I don't know, eating people, so they're not that nice. They look cute, but they're cannibals. I think people forgot that part. Scott Poe says, I heard of reindeer bison is also an interesting way for high-level NPC druid to travel and randomly show up while the party travels. Ooh. Yeah, Plur's like, damn murder bears. Yeah, you think they're cute. Yeah, just wait till you put on some like cocoa butter or something, maybe some olive oil in the hair or whatever, and you start smelling really good, and they're like, yeah, putting on the bib, knife and fork. But you are correct, Scott. Like, it would be an interesting way for like a high level NPC druid. It could lead to maybe the herd unknowingly is being led by this high level druid. Could be a hermit living out on the plains, living up on top of a high plateau and following along with them. Hell, half the herd could be shape-shifted villagers or something that are, whether they're lycanthropic or druidic or some weird flow in between that, traveling along with the herd because that just happens to be how they travel or something. I think that sounds kind of cool. Rickard says, I mean, people think the stormtroopers are horrible shots, but they forget about the sandcrawler and Luke's aunt and uncle. Yeah, but we never saw that, right? So, I mean, maybe they're just taking credit for something they didn't do. I'm being stupid, man. I'm picking with you because, yes, you are correct. They did kill Luke's aunt and uncle. We forgot about that part. And they did kill what are the sandcrawler people with the beady eyes? Damn it, my brain's not working. All right. So we're triangles. All right, so let's go with a further triangle, okay? Let's pick off of the Stormtrooper Sandcrawler idea here, okay? Yes, we know that was the inciting event that caused Luke to leave planet and go on the Jawas. Thank you. Jawas. Thank you. But we know it was the inciting event, but that triangle of Luke, stormtroopers, and this other thing allowed not just us as a viewer, but the main character themselves to understand the deadliness and the horror of who they were fighting, right? Because in many ways, Luke and Han wanted to get off planet using the same technique. Oh, I'm going to join the Empire, right? Maybe I'll become a pilot. They aren't that bad. I mean, I've heard rumors, and then boom, you have this third thing. So that Hobgoblin horde, Hobgoblin warband using the herd, maybe the PCs are like, oh, well, they're just hobgoblins. I mean, I know we like to think of them as evil, but they're not really that bad until they come across dead villagers strung up on pikes out there in the open plains, right? Rickard says, Hoth didn't go too well for the rebels either. That's very true. Yeah, the Force grants plot armor. You guys are silly. Yeah, you are absolutely correct about that. But it is true that we can, if you want to foreshadow, say, how powerful an enemy is, or foreshadow the information of an enemy searching for a lost relic, or the Necronomicon, or searching for Sarah Connor, right? No one knows that Sarah Connor did not know she was being hunted after until on television they started killing off a bunch of Sarah Connors. And then we're led to, let's see, a lone waitress and robot from the future goes to kill her. How are we going to get her motivated to trust this strange person from the, I know, we'll get her to trust this homeless guy by putting this thing out there. And that might be that using that as a foreshadow for your PCs in terms of what might be happening in your game. If you have a red dragon, you might want to have a couple of places burned down and people talking about the horrors of the red dragon. If you want to have the PCs confront the hobgoblin warband, you could have some people destroyed and killed as the hobgoblin warband goes through following the herd, and the PCs are like, I thought we could deal with them like rational people. We're going to have to put a stop to this, And again, that might be an inciting event. Letting this thing go, the more horrible the things happen because of their inactions. Again, here's a tension and pressure generator, right? If the PCs aren't necessarily good, if they're rather neutral, then you foreshadow that in there. You say, well, the hobgoblins are killing innocent villagers. PCs are like, it doesn't involve us, whatever. Okay, that's fine. Maybe the warband starts recruiting, or they start capturing more slaves, or they become stronger and more efficient of a killing force over time, that the PCs, ignoring this growing threat on the horizon, do not encounter, which is also a possibility as well. Which it's a toolkit for us. Okay, so again, using the triangle, PCs, NPC, adversary, and this third thing out there, this nebulous thing. Pillar says, I had a bandit group that got mentioned in session 1, getting strung up by the military in session 7. They were totally ignored by the PCs, but the bandits got dealt with in the most horrific manner. Yeah, and again, this can make your setting come alive, especially if things are happening off screen. Even if NPCs are getting killed or distracted or waylaid because of weather or whatever in the background, if the PCs hear about the Duchess being removed from power and a rebel faction taking over or something, and this may have, the PCs could literally have no effect on this, but this might be a great way for you to establish the chaos as the PCs get closer to, say, the governmental agencies of this other foreign, protectorate or something. Mr. Spenzar says, warband turned the relics of the tribe against the party. Exactly. So the warband finds the relics that the PCs ignored crossing the accursed desert. Now they get to the dungeon. It's emptied out. PCs are like, well, where's our stuff at? And then they face plant. Oh, now the warband has the relics they were looking for in the first place. I think that's a great, what a nice little circle there, right? Of things going on. Now, of course, what you don't want to do is always punish players for not latching onto your story hooks. But if you throw enough story hooks out there and enough repercussions of not latching onto the story hooks, one of the best things about role-playing games versus like video games in many ways are consequences. And while there are plenty of video games that incorporate the consequences of your actions or consequences of your inactions, it is this is a great tool to use to say, oh, well, if they don't do this, then this other thing will happen. Pillar says, I suppose a part of the triangle I use a lot is war. It's not interacted with, but used as flavor fairly often. Absolutely, that whether there is something going on in the background of your world, like imminent war, spies, secret police capturing people and interrogating them. You know me, I love weather events. It could be regular seasonal events. It could be hunting season in the woods, fishing season. It could be something happening in the future, like a coronation or a graduation, a marriage. It could be a stellar event, like a comet or an eclipse, equinox, solstice. Any number of these things could be changing the parameters and how people are acting and reacting in the world. Again, with combat as well, if you want, you can also start to include, say, a third possible adversary or ally in and amongst your interactions. So if hobgoblin war bands are your thing that you're using in your world, maybe there's a third thing. Maybe there are, maybe there's owlbears that roam around in the woodlands or something like that. And the owlbears are prone to attack both PCs and NPCs on a whim. And maybe that's the dynamic that changes a battle. Now, it might be kind of strange for us to say to both control the hobgoblins that are going after the PCs and then the owlbears that are both going after the PCs and the NPCs, right? Because then it'll be NPC on NPC. But what a great way and a tool in your back pocket to modulate an under threat or over threat that you've established for your PCs without needing to use pure numbers to balance out an encounter. So an action may be, you absolutely positively know, hey, my PCs are like 5th level. They're going to wipe up hobgoblins like it's no big thing. But if the hobgoblins purposefully, let's say, angered, a group of these owlbears, maybe the owlbears are the thing that are like, they're not allies of the hobgoblins, but they trick them into attacking a nest of them. I don't know if owlbears are considered nests. Anyway, but that may be the thing that could cause a disruption, and maybe the PCs could then lure the NPCs in the way of an attacker. So if an owlbear is charging a PC and another PC is like, I'm going to push, you know what, I'm going to take the opportunity to use one of my attacks and kick the chest of this hobgoblin in the way so that the owlbear attacks the hobgoblin instead of my ally, right? You get my point. that too many hobgoblins, okay, maybe the owlbears attack some of them. Not enough hobgoblins, maybe the owlbears attack more of the PCs, right? And you could there's other triangles in there as well, but we'll get into that. Let me get back into the chat. Pillar-ist says crops and famine caused by armies taking resources. Oh, I like that. The bandits were deserters, mercenaries being well off with more work, refugees, etc. Pillar going on talking about using war as a backdrop, which is an excellent. When a war is going on, even if you are nowhere near the front lines, there's plenty of things that happen. There's usually chaos amongst the leadership. Like you said, crops and famine caused by armies taking resources. Armies will move through and they'll take livestock. They'll take maybe the local harvest. That could be a thing that maybe causes a local population to starve. Armies, when they move through, destroy plenty of landscape as well, and they take most of the weapons. They're probably going to take a lot of the animals, the labor animals, to pull wagons and siege weapons, maybe all of those things. Even resources like gold or natural resources, not natural, produced resources, material, wood. Iron for smelting, things like that. and like you said, bandits becoming deserters, like the bandits were deserters. There are going to be a lot of people that way. They're going to be refugees. There will most likely be deserters from both sides. In addition to which, there may be people who are spies. There are going to be the wounded that are going to be left behind. There may even be not just famine, but disease will spread as well. Um, like you said, mercenaries being well off because of a lot more work to use. And like you say, refugees trying to just survive, dodging in between the mercenary groups and the enemy factions going after each other. And let's not forget about spies and all that kind of stuff going on and affecting the trajectory of the PCs as they move closer or travel further away from the front lines. Mr. Spencer says players joining with the intelligent NPCs in a truce to overcome the third point of the triangle. Erase that question mark, and I absolutely agree with you, right? PCs could join with an intelligent NPCs, even if it's temporary, even if the PCs, the only way for them to survive is to join with the Hobgoblin Warband, right? To escape from or fight off or scare away the nest of owlbears. And that might just be a temporary respite. Ricker says owlbear nest parties are such a hoot. Boom boom. Oh, you're so silly. I like that though. But you are absolutely correct there, Mr. Spence. Joining together temporarily to overcome something. And remember, even joining together might not even be a conversation. It could be two groups wanting to fight each other, and all of a sudden both of them are attacked. We often see this in classic zombie post-apocalyptic intellectual properties, right? Where two groups of people hate each other. They're attacked by zombies. Zombies become the third element between two warring parties. Sometimes they work together. Sometimes they try to push one group of people into the zombies more than the other. Even temporarily, they may turn into a big giant circle, overcome the zombies, and then go back to either wanting to kill each other or maybe having a newfound respect for each other. We've often seen this I've seen this classically in the old kung fu theater movies with samurai and the Chinese warriors and such. Two people want revenge on each other, but they work together to take down an evil warlord, only for after killing the evil warlord, they face off against each other, right? Scott posts, the hobgoblins toss chum on the PCs at the start of combat. Yeah. Yeah, why not? Why wouldn't they do something like that? Like, everyone knows owlbears are attracted to I don't know, sage or allspice or something in that nature, right? You PCs get they throw bottles of some kind of concoction towards you, and it splashes at your feet, and you're attacked with like blood or entrails or something, and the PCs are like, well, does it do any damage? No, it doesn't do any damage to you. Like, why'd they throw that at us? And then all of a sudden, that's all the owlbears smell. Or it's like the fresh blood on the PC's boots. And they're like, oh, that's why they did it. Damn. And who's to say that through, the PCs who have the greater stealth ability now has been ruined by the enemies that's used this other third part, this other triangle of interaction to get them to be hunted by the owlbears in the first place, to get the hobgoblin warband to run away because they stole the ancient relics that the PCs were supposed to get if they hadn't been distracted in the accursed desert. See, that's what you call a callback. So when having interactions, and remember, those interactions could be anything, even amongst animal-minded creatures, you can add in a triangle, whether it's protecting the young or searching for shelter, searching for water. Maybe the creatures, the animalistic creatures are they smell the food in the backpacks of the PCs. Maybe they smell some of those extra good berries that the PCs have stashed in their their pouches or something used for a later day, right? They could be trying to go after the PC's mounts, maybe horses, or they're riding on elephants, or I don't know, camels or ostriches or something. And the owlbears are trying to kill the mounts, but not the PCs, going after the weakest prey that they can go after. Maybe the animals are running from a forest fire, or they are diseased or injured. They are, with something like rabies or something, or infested with rot grubs and blind from the pain. Could be, there's so many third elements you can add to the behavior of an animal. Even what we consider, instead of just going, oh, you stumble upon an owlbear, it attacks you, you attack it, it attacks you. It could, maybe it's just protecting its young or marking its territory and just wants the PCs to go away. That can happen so often. A lot of people understand that, we've seen nature channel shows where a polar bear is protecting its young. And the only reason that the bear is aggressive in the first place is because of the threat that its young may have. Maybe the creature lays eggs and is trying to protect the location of its eggs, or the creature is in heat and is trying to breed and has a more aggressive nature to it. But maybe they're only maybe two or more animals are fighting over territory, like goats or moose are, charging each other over a field or something. And the PCs, if they just, they skirt around the outside, maybe they can get away without being trampled or something, or like I said, if animals are in heat, they may look at the PCs as adversaries to them breeding or whatnot. There's any number of things that could happen. And this allows maybe your ranger, your druidic, your outlander characters to understand the natures of what these things are happening. Pelora, take it easy. Have a good one. I will see thee later. We'll always be here, and you're always welcome. Thank you. Yeah, the final thought before I shoot off, there's always bigger fish. Pelora says of her parting comment, one of her parting comments, and that is very correct. If maybe the owlbear nest is disrupted, they turn violent, but they see one of the horses run off, and maybe they go after that horse, because isn't that easier than being hacked at with swords and being blasted with spells, right? There's always something bigger and better out there, and why not have your animals do the same thing? And of course, we have more intelligent motivations as well. Intelligent motivations being running from combat, sneaking around, wanting to parlay instead of getting killed, wanting to steal items, wanting to simply take an assessment of the NPC, wanting to take an assessment of the PCs. Maybe the NPC can't survive across the accursed desert and wants to use the resources of the PCs, if only for a temporary truce. There's so many ways, and adding that third element in, can really change the dynamic of the interaction. And it doesn't necessarily mean that every single encounter can be solved with social interaction, and it doesn't mean every single encounter needs to be solved with either being murdered or murdering it. There may be any number of things in between. If the PCs help heal the wounds of the goblin warband that was attacked by those owlbears, maybe the goblins are like, the hobgoblins are like, maybe we can work with them temporarily. I hear some people out there maybe balking at the idea that, well, they have an alignment and they're evil and blah, blah, blah. Yes, but there's also common sense. And if you want a greater depth of verisimilitude in your world, then role-playing the realistic actions and reactions of your creatures and your NPCs makes a lot of sense. People don't wake up evil. They may take advantage. There may be one or more members of that goblin warband that have a little less self-control. Maybe they are a little bit of the, I don't want to, we don't need to travel with those humans, but there may be others, the war chief, the smarter ones, the ones that are starving, the ones that have been injured, that are like, we need all the help we can get to get the hell out of here. If it means we're going to have to travel you know, 80 kilometers to get to the edge of the accursed desert and then, um, you know, part our ways, fine. And who knows, between getting to from A to B, things might change. Maybe the hobgoblins do learn to trust the PCs, or maybe they try an assassination attempt, or maybe the PCs try to save some of the warband and it fails, and that separates the truce. You didn't try to save them getting sucked down into the I don't know, the quicksand or the sinkhole or something. Like, you saw we did the best we could do, and like, oh, you wanted them to die, you know, and that might change that whole interaction again, based on, you know, using the environment and such. So anyway, guys, we're going to talk about triangles and using that as like a very simplistic means of thinking of interacting with things in your tabletop game. So I thought I would just share that with you guys this week and just hash it out. So appreciate all you guys being here. Mr. Spenzar, the czar of Spenzing, I appreciate you coming in. I hope you were able to find a couple of nuggets of information in going through my backlog. So guys, everyone, Scott Post says, love the topic. Yeah, I thought I would change it up. I like to change things up a little bit. And sure, my using triangle as a descriptor may not be that, it's not very descriptive. But digging into it, I'm sure all you guys are like, oh, I get what he's talking about. Oh, yeah. And like Pillar-ist said, and a bunch of other guys are like thinking like, oh, I do this all the time because I used it when I did this other thing. And so I just figured that might be a great way for us to just, you know, shake the mind up or whatever. So guys, everyone out there, have a great day. Thank you for joining me. I know your time is very valuable and you spend your valuable time with me. So I hope you can get some change back. Janny, have a great one as well. See ya. Deadman says, should have brought up the Modrons. We'll bring them up. Maybe we'll bring them up tomorrow.